Okay, everybody, thank you. So welcome to National Apprenticeship Week and to this Teacher and Advisor CPD on this rather long title. I tried to cut it down a bit, but that's as short as I could potentially get it. I'm quite excited about this particular CPD actually, because I think it's quite unique. There's plenty of CPD out there this week about what are apprenticeships, you know, the local state of play, local market information, that kind of stuff. But looking at the national list, and I think this is the only CPD in the country being offered with regards to this draft strategy. So it is going to be a bit niche. It is going to be a bit specific. However, having said that, I really think it's going to be much beneficial for you. So we have a few people with us today. So welcome. Thank you for joining us. Please do say hi in the chat. And if you want to say where you're from, that's fantastic. For those of you who have registered who weren't able to reach us, obviously you're watching the recording right now, so thank you for joining us via recording. Even if you are watching this via recording, for whatever reason, there is an evaluation at the end which we would love for you to fill in, regardless whether you were here live or whether you were here on a recording. Okay, so what we're going to do, so I'm going to give a brief overview about apprenticeships and how that relates to the Department for Education's draft strategy on climate change and sustainable education. And we're going to pass over to Jane Pierce, who we're fabulously privileged to have along with us, who's from the Institute for Apprenticeships Technical Education, which is absolutely amazing. We'll take a little comfort break, and then we will move on to Ian. Ian has just joined us, which is fantastic. Which is fantastic. Welcome in. And then Charlotte will have a talk to us about an apprentice's point of view of all this stuff and give a personal perspective. And then my colleague Naomi will be taking over and will lead the Q&A and discussion. Right, so let's get started. This is going to be a bit of a whistle-stop tour. I really do want to make sure I finish by 1:15 in order to pass on to the main event, which is Jane, Ian and Charlotte. So you are all here probably are aware about what apprenticeships are, but for just a quick overview, just in case you're new to your role or you're still not 100% sure about what apprenticeships are, is that what I always tell people is that they are jobs. Okay, so if you don't know anything about apprenticeships or you forget about apprenticeships or anything I say, just think of the word job and you pretty much got almost what an apprenticeship is. It's employment. With all the things, the benefits, the responsibilities, the roles that come with being an employee. But of course, the difference is if you look down the bottom right hand side there, is that you've got an element of training involved, formal training. So about 80% of the time you spend with the employer doing your job, 20% of the time you're with a training provider. Sometimes it could be 1 day a week out of 5, or it could be a 3-month placement out of the year. It depends on the apprenticeship, but that's the kind of thing. You can start them at 16. So those of you who work only with Key Stage 4 students, you don't have Key Stage 5 student or Level 3 students, you can talk about apprenticeships now with them. You get a mentor, and it could be a work colleague who's more senior. It could be someone at the training provider or both that will support the apprentice. Depending on the level, they take 1 to 5 years to complete. And you get paid a minimum of 30 hours a week, and the apprenticeship minimum wage is £4.30 an hour, which doesn't sound very much, but there are no tuition fees. You get the course paid for you. So you get paid for your job and you get the course paid for you. So, and a lot of employers will actually pay quite a fair bit more than £4.30 an hour. And this is the pathway that they're a part of. So you're probably familiar with GCSEs to A levels, maybe BTECs through over to undergrad and whatnot. But this is how the apprenticeships sit. So GCSEs are a level 2 qualification. Intermediate apprenticeships are a level 2 qualification. You complete one of those, it's like the equivalent of, I think, 4 passes of good GCSEs. And then you've got advanced apprenticeships. They're a level 3 qualification, so the equivalent of BTECs and A levels and T levels. And then you've got higher apprenticeships. They're like the same as higher diplomas. They're level 4, and they could go up to level 7 actually as high as. And then you've got degree apprenticeships. So apprenticeships are part of a pathway to get into higher education. Okay, it's not either or. And as you can see, because these are leveled, an advanced apprenticeship is just as strenuous and just as challenging as an A level, as a T level. So they're all on the level. In fact, some may argue apprenticeships are tougher because you've got to work and study, not just focus on your studies. But there you go. So where does this all sit in with this Department for Education's draft strategy? Now, this came out in November on the back of COP26. Now, My other job is I'm a climate science communicator as well, and a geography communicator. And I was pretty disappointed personally about COP26. But one of the things the glimmer of hope, the straw that I grabbed onto, was this draft strategy that came out, which I thought was quite robust. Now, I've read it word for word, and if you want to, I strongly do recommend that someone in your school, perhaps it's yourself or someone who is involved in policy making, middle leaders and above, I really do recommend that you do scan through this draft strategy. It's easy to find, you just can Google the title. But I'm only going to focus on a small little bit of it that's relevant to apprenticeships and relevant to what Jane is going to talk about in particular, and then what Ian and then what Charlotte's going to refer to with regards to green skills and sustainability apprenticeships. So there's a big focus, of course, on education. You know, there's all you know, the government kind of word in regards to how education is important, the enthusiasm of youth, and I think that's a recognition that the youth voice has been heard personally. But the key thing here is this big section on green skills and jobs. Hi there, Claire. Welcome. Don't worry that you've missed the first few minutes. You can catch up on that on the recording. Thanks for joining us. So on page 6, it mentions that actually what the government did a survey, commissioned an independent survey where most young people, I think they said about 65 to 75%, said they had a desire to work in a role that had an element of sustainability in it. And that is because young people, from who I've spoken to anyway, are exceptionally switched on and exceptionally anxious with the way that the world is going with regards to environmental degradation and climate change in particular. And they want to do something about that. And one way they feel they can do something about that is to get a job which considers sustainability, where they feel that the job that they do is actually enhancing the environment, repairing the environment, you know, and that gives them a sense of controlling that anxiety, or as a friend of mine calls it, changing the climate anxiety into agency. And then at the bottom there, you can say that, I mean, we know that these numbers may be quite arbitrary, but you hope they'd be on the upper end. But the government has legislated to move towards net zero by 2050. That is legislation, that is a legally binding target. Now, as part of delivering this, they're calling it a green industrial revolution, which is a little bit more, you know, a play on words, but they're hoping that almost 200,000 jobs are going to come online, you know, very soon within the next few years, and almost 500,000 jobs by 2030. Now, these are the periods of time where our students are entering the workforce. So middle of 2020s, 2030s. This is very soon. And you've got students you teach right in front of you who you are responsible for, who could be up for these kind of jobs. So this is why it is important for all of us as educators and advisors to be aware of this draft strategy and what is going on here. Okay, again, you don't need to read this word for word. I recommend you do so at your own time, at your own leisure. And that bit.ly link there and that QR code will take you to some of my other work where I go through the whole thing in a bit more detail. So that's for another time. And this is on page 9, and it's kind of like almost like a theory of change kind of way about how they're going to get to a world-class sustainability and climate change education strategy, right? So they've got climate education, which you're going to hear quite a lot of if you haven't already. Green skills and careers, which is mostly what we're focusing on today. The education estate, even turning school buildings into educational resources, as how can we make them net zero, or an example of being net zero. Even operations and supply chains, you're going to have to focus on where your food's coming from. So that's going to come soon. And then you've probably heard this in the news about the Duke and Edinburgh of climate change kind of thing, which is the National Education H Part Climate Leaders Award. But we're just going to focus on the green skills part. So this action area, as they call it. And so to take you through, this is what they hope is going to happen. They're planning for in this strategy. So is that we are all going to be responsible for delivering programs for young people and adults to train and retrain and upskill for green jobs. Now that is where Gatsby Benchmark 4 comes in my opinion, because Gatsby Benchmark 4, which is linking curriculum learning to careers, is, let's just say, it's not as good as it should be with most establishments. The schools that I work directly with openly admit themselves that they need to do more to embed careers within their curriculum. Well, now you've got a mandate, because the government is turning around and saying we need to prepare our kids for these types of jobs and green jobs and things like that. Now, I'm not just talking about geography here or even science. I'm talking about many different things, because if you look at the kind of skills and careers they mention in this document, they talk, yes, of course, they talk about renewable energy, they talk about retrofitting buildings. So you've got the construction engineering industry. Oh, well, that's DT now, isn't it? You know, they do talk about recycling and logistics and circular economy. Well, now you're talking about things that could be involved with mathematics or things to do with even historical context to see how things work. You know, electric vehicles, and in the sectors they mention, agriculture, construction, horticulture, forestry, scientific research and STEM, energy. And the things that don't get mentioned in this strategy but feed into this, well, who's going to audit this kind of stuff? So you can have legislators, you can have auditors, you can have solicitors involved. What about the finance of this stuff? What about the cost benefit kind of stuff, the legal side of this stuff? So you can see even the secondary sectors, there's not a GCSE or an A-level subject or a BTEC or T that doesn't get touched by this. So this is a really good opportunity for us to focus on Gatsby Benchmark 4, maybe getting people like Charlotte in, who we'll talk a bit later, to kind of see what Charlotte does and her colleagues talk about with regards to the rest of the curriculum that you teach. And this now leads me on quite nicely to Jane, because as you can see on page 15, they directly mention the Institute for Apprenticeships and Technical Education, who have formed a green apprenticeships advisory panel. Okay, so and I'm going to let Jane talk a little bit more about that, because they really do strongly believe that apprenticeships are one of the major ways forward to make this draft strategy, this strand of the draft strategy, work. They really do believe, and Naomi and I, for example, we are the people who champion apprenticeships for NEACO, for Take Your Place, and we've seen the trend growing in apprenticeships. You know, even in parts of the country like East Anglia here, where they've traditionally been slow to get started, but they're really picking up pace. I don't know if you've seen it recently, Naomi, but the most recent vacancies that have come out, crikey, what is double the number of vacancies just this month alone compared to the month previous. So they will pick up now, of course, for those who offer September starts. Okay, so that's me. So some folks have arrived a little bit late. That's absolutely fine, no problem at all. If you have, you can watch the recording back for this preamble that I've just given. But now, absolute pleasure. I think I will now hand over to Jane. So Jane is from the Institute for Apprenticeships and Technical Education at the DfE. So welcome, Jane, and she's going to go a little bit more depth in that kind of element that she's involved with at the Institute.
So lovely to be here. My name's Jane Pearce. I'm Deputy Director for Engineering, Construction and Transport here at the Institute, but I'm also very privileged to be able to lead the Institute's work on green skills and green apprenticeships, which is really exciting. And I really appreciate people being here after a long day in the classroom, perhaps. But this year's National Apprenticeship Week has a very timely theme, I think, build the future, which is exactly what we're trying to do with our work on green skills. And I think that times very nicely. So if I may, for those who don't know the Institute, I'll just do a very quick introduction to who we are and what we do. So the Institute was created back in 2017 based on work that had been going on for a long time before that, probably going back to about 2011 by Alison Wolfe and Doug Richards, recognising the significance of employers not having enough influence over skills provision or qualification development. We then continued to grow, and the Institute took on responsibility for technical education in 2018, at which point we changed our name. But we are an employer-led organisation. Our vision is for a world-leading apprenticeship and technical education system that equips people from all backgrounds, and that's very important to us, for skilled occupations, contributing to increased economic productivity. We're sponsored by the Department for Education, but we are independent of them, and our work is overseen by an independent chair. So what do we do? Some of this will seem quite technical, but we oversee the development, approval and publication of apprenticeships and all of the things within them, including their assessment plans. We maintain and update the occupational maps, which represent the 15 routes into skilled employments that were set out by the Sainsbury Review. We work with groups of employers we call trailblazers to develop apprenticeships that meet employers' needs. We are responsible for technical qualifications, which are part of the T-level programme. Some of you may have come across. It's a classroom-based element of 2-year technical study programme that will become an option for students to study at level 3 as an alternative to A-levels or apprenticeships. And more recently, we're responsible for approving higher technical qualifications at level 4 and 5. And subject to the passage of the Skills Bill, we will also be taking on responsibility more broadly for technical education at level 2 and 3. So that will bring all technical qualifications under our umbrella and ensure that we are truly employer-centred. So lots of different pathways are open with technical qualifications and apprenticeships. And one of the things I love about the work that I do is the sheer variety of occupations that we work with, and really good opportunities for further career progression and training. We have T-levels in education and childcare, in health and science, in construction and engineering. We've recently approved apprenticeships for a medical doctor, and we're working with employers for a level 6 space system engineer apprenticeship at the moment. So there's a huge variety out there. But we're here today to talk about climate change and green skills. So the transition to net zero will transform our economy and require changes across our transport and energy systems, the way in which we construct and heat buildings, industrial processes, as well as how we farm and source our food. And research suggests that 1 in 5 jobs, that's over 6 million workers, will require skills which may experience either demand growth or reduction during that transition. So it's really important that we develop a comprehensive and holistic view of the green skills and jobs challenge. So the Institute is part of a much wider cross-government initiative to champion and support the development of green skills. So the Institute follows expert guidance from thousands of large and small employers to deliver world-class apprenticeships and technical education. We believe that employers know what training is needed to fill skills gaps, keep pace with technological advances, and push forward the green agenda and support the national recovery. So the Institute's vision for green skills is to contribute to net zero and deliver on the government's ambition for 2 million new green jobs by 2030 by working with and supporting employers so that apprenticeships and technical qualifications are green. So what do we mean by green jobs? It sounds very simple, doesn't it? And it's perhaps not, but maybe in this case, it's better to keep it simple. So we think of green apprenticeships as those which give the workforce the skills they need to slow down climate change. We need to make sure we've got the right skills in place for the future workforce to deliver that technology shift we're going to need. All apprenticeships are affected by sustainability in different ways, and every job has the potential to become green, either directly or indirectly. And so there's a huge range of skills which will support that transition to net zero. Employers tell us that most occupations in the green economy are not new, but an evolution or flexing of current occupations. For example, engineers are natural problem solvers, and climate change is definitely a problem to solve. They may need additional skills in many cases, but not entirely new occupations. So science, manufacturing, technology apprenticeships are being flexed to enable the delivery of electric vehicle battery technologies in gigafactories and being supported by working with the sector and the Faraday Institution, for example. Similarly, our electrician standards are being checked to ensure that they support the rollout of charge point technologies and power walls. But we're also working with employers to ensure that apprenticeships are available in new and emerging technologies. For example, we're working with a group of employers to create a new apprenticeship for district heat network technicians, where skills are needed to make sure that we can make better use of this low carbon solution to heating domestic and commercial properties. A single local heat network can save each year carbon equivalent to flying a passenger jet from the UK to Australia 82 times. However, for some new and emerging technologies, we recognise employers might not yet have a clear idea of the skills they need. There we work with employers to develop a meaningful joined-up offer to specific skills shortages and problems. And hydrogen is one of those emerging areas where we know we will need skills, but we're not necessarily entirely sure what they are at this stage. But of course, the UK economy is not yet fully transitioned to a new net carbon zero economy. And so apprenticeships with other technical education products need to reflect that reality while creating transferable and future-proof skills to offer apprentices and employers, and that's not always easy. Some apprenticeships, such as auto care technician, already embed alternative propulsion, such as electric vehicles, in the standard, alongside more traditional requirements. And it's clear that we will still have petrol and diesel vehicles on the roads for a good few years yet. And we need to make sure that people have got the skills to work with both technologies. I'm going to try and see if we can get a video to hear an employer's and some of their apprentices' experiences. If this doesn't work, somebody let me know and we'll make sure that people can access it after the session. But let's give it a go.
Jacobs is a professional services organisation really leaning into some of the toughest challenges in society. And we offer multiple apprenticeships in the part of the business I look after at the moment. We've got about 220 apprenticeships running, and because of the types of challenges we tackle for our clients, they're really diverse. So they range from all aspects of environmental practices to some more traditional engineering skills, and increasingly a focus on a lot of digital apprenticeships.
My name is Millie Chapman and I currently work for Jacobs. I'm 21 years old and I'm currently working as an environmental practitioner degree apprentice. At Jacobs, no 2 days are the same. It's basically one day I could be out in the field and I could be taking surveys for bats, mice, all sorts of random stuff, and then another day I could be just sitting in the office typing up a report about it. I've been involved with a lot of different initiatives all across like the water and environment sector, such as working with sales and working with marketing and working with stakeholder engagement. Again, as I said, there's no 2 days that are the same, so it's really quite exciting.
Hi, my name's Bonnie, I'm 21. I picked this apprenticeship because I felt that it was more aligned to where my passions are. So my passions are sustainability, ecology and biodiversity and climate change. I thought this apprenticeship was a really great opportunity for me to get hands-on experience in a corporate environment, and also I thought it'd be a really good test for my skills.
I think that going forwards, green apprenticeships are going to be such a massive thing. It's a real issue at the moment in the sense of what our sustainability is like as a country and as the whole kind of unit in the world. And I think that going forwards, there's such prospects for working in green technology.
But it's really rewarding, and it's one of the most satisfying things to know that I'm making a positive change through my job.
So Kit's already mentioned the department's draft strategy, and we've based our work around that in how we're approaching green skills in the Institute. So we've developed 3 distinct work strands: delivering green apprenticeships and technical qualifications, kind of our core business; ensuring green skills at the heart of cross-government and regional conversations about green investment, skill shortages and levelling up. And those regional conversations are increasingly important. And finally, about ensuring that the Institute as an organisation is doing itself what it's asking of others to do. So ensuring that we behave as a responsible organisation and that we put sustainability at the heart of everything we do as an organisation. Again, we've touched on the Green Apprenticeships Advisory Panel already, but we set this group up last year to help focus our efforts and make sure that we have the right skills in place for the future workforce. The group is chaired by Judy Ling Wong, who's a really influential environmentalist and chair of the Black Education Environmental Network. It's made up of 14 members who bring extensive experience across priority sectors, including energy, the shift to zero emission vehicles, greener buildings, protecting our natural environment, and green finance. The group is also supported by a wider green advisory community of over 100 experts who provide particular expertise on occupations where it's needed. And the Green Apprenticeship Advisory Panel have been asked to advise on how we can enhance our current apprenticeships to ensure that they meet the needs of employers within the growing green economy, but also to look at where we might need new apprenticeships to reflect new occupations. So the group have made wide-ranging recommendations already, and they were aligned to the themes of the National Green Job Task Force, who reported to government last summer. As part of that work, the group endorsed an initial 44 apprenticeships that are either green or are supportive of green. And they range from things like environmental practitioners to countryside rangers and smart home technicians, as well as those which might be less obvious, such as artificial intelligence data specialists. But that was really only the beginning. So the advisory panel have now mapped almost 300 apprenticeship standards across the energy sector, battery technology, carbon zero construction, forestry and agri-tech and green finance. So they're, again, a really wide range of occupations, ranging from engineering manufacturing technician and environmental health practitioner to investment operations specialist, IT solutions technician to fire safety engineers. So there's a really wide range of apprenticeships that are covered by the work of the GAP.
My name's Shay and I'm 21 years old and I'm an environmental practitioner degree apprentice for the Environment Agency. Well, what drew me to a green apprenticeship really was the education system at the time and the news. As I was young and getting older, climate really started to take the forefront of society and debates, and it's now where it is, which is probably the #1 issue. You can't help but about hearing it all the time and hearing the dangers, hearing the potential futures. You feel like you want to do your part, and it's all well and good doing it in your everyday life, but for me I felt like I could do a bit more. And when I came across this opportunity to do a green apprenticeship, I just felt like I had to do it, and I'm enjoying it and I don't regret it at all. It's a 5-year course and I will transition between different roles roughly every 6 months, getting involved in different teams and gaining experience and learning at the same time and putting what I learn into practice. And I'm actually in the middle of a transition at the moment. I worked in the South London Waste team since April, and I'm moving on to flood coastal risk management at the start of November. The aim is to try and get out onto a site once or twice a week, and a lot of the time for me it's been what they call routine site inspections. And what we'll do is we'll go onto the site and we'll check that what they're doing is within their permit. So a lot of the work I do is checking the permits that we've handed out to sites and just making sure that they're following the permits, because if they're not, it's an environmental risk, it's a hazard, and then obviously that needs to be dealt with, that needs to be regulated to protect the environment. Doing a green apprenticeship not only makes you feel like you're doing your part as much as you can, but it also helps you away from your job. It really does enlighten you and make you want to make changes like yourself. You don't feel like you're forced to do it, you actually feel like you want to make a change.
So where do we go now that we've got these 300 apprenticeships that have been mapped? So we're working with our employers, because employers tell us that they want our apprenticeships and technical education products to be greened in a thoughtful and sensible way. And now that the GAP has completed its mapping exercise, we've begun working with them, asking for employers' commitment to endorse green apprenticeship standards and to make changes that might be needed. Some of those changes will be quite small. There'll be quite small tweaks to existing provision. In other cases, we'll need to completely revise a standard from scratch. However, it's definitely not the end of the conversation, and once those themes have been covered, we'll continue to work closely with Trailblazers and other stakeholders to support them to consider how other apprenticeships can contribute to climate change goals and meeting the needs of the green economy. And of course, sustainability is already included in T-levels, for example, in building services engineering. But as standards are revised and as technology changes, we'll be updating those to make sure that those and other technical qualifications also support that transition. So thank you for listening. If you're interested and want to find out a bit more, there's lots of information on the sustainability section of our website, including a really good podcast from the last National Apprenticeship Week, which I think Kit, you and my colleague Anna West did together. Similarly, you can drop us a line at the Institute. We're always happy to have a chat about green skills or answer any questions you might have, but I'm also happy to take any questions you might have now.
fantastically would love to welcome Ian, who is we work very, very closely with here in the east of England. So just very quickly, she just mentioned, because I know that some of you are here from outside of the region, which is absolutely fantastic. So even though we focus mostly on East Anglia, so NEACO, take your place. We are the Network for East Anglia Collaborative Outreach. So we're a collection of colleges and universities like the University of East Anglia, University of Suffolk, who help support schools with their careers programs and help their students with their future pathways into higher education. So if you're kind of wondering who we are, you have your own regional partnership. And the best thing to do to find out who that is to go onto the Office for Students UniConnect website. So just search for that, Google it, and you'll be able to find out who your regional partnership is, and so you can get in contact with them. Right, so it is now time, and I'm going to pass off over to the wonderful Ian Cooper. And when Ian has finished, I'm then going to hand over to my colleague Naomi, who will then introduce Charlotte Hubbard from the Flagship group. So this will be the final time you will hear from me direct today. And I hope you enjoy the rest of the session. So Ian, over to you.
Thanks, Kit, and thank you for inviting me and for organising this. It is very much appreciated. So I love to chat at the best of times, so this is going to be a real challenge for me. So hopefully I'll get straight to the point. But if you do have any questions, please feel free to either put your hand up using the emoji function or pop something in the chat. So as Kit said, very kind introduction. My name's Ian Cooper and I am the Head of Engagement for Speakers for Schools. For those of you who don't know what Speakers for Schools are, in a nutshell, we're an educational charity who are free to use for schools, colleges and independent training providers across the UK. And essentially our aim is to wipe out educational inequality and give young people fantastic opportunities, regardless of whether they're based in Lowestoft, Stowmarket, Needham Market, York, Exeter, Bath. So what we want to do, regardless of location, give young people fantastic opportunities through the variety of programmes that we offer. Now, specifically, I'm here today to talk about National Apprenticeship Week and how we can help support yourselves and your students, but also some wider projects we've got going on. So in terms of Speakers for Schools, can I just either get something in the chat? This is the teacher side of me coming out. Get something in the chat if you've heard of us or you're aware of Speakers for Schools, either with the emoji function or a yes. Perfect. Thanks, Claire. Lovely. OK, brilliant. So my role of Head of Engagement essentially is, it's quite a fluffy title, but what it means is that I manage my team, and essentially half of my side is working with businesses on bringing them in on, sorry, a third of my side is working with businesses on bringing them on board to deliver fantastic virtual, and we will go back to face-to-face opportunities for young people. Another third of my time is supporting my team. So in terms of supporting, I have various different roles in my team, so supporting them in terms of their educational mobility and engagement, but also my staff members that work with businesses and our regional fundraising manager. And the third of my time is spent with working with schools, colleges and independent training providers in terms of educating them, enabling them on exactly what we do, how we do it, and how it can benefit both yourselves as teachers, but also your students. So just so you're aware, my background is lecturing, educational management, and I suppose quality assurance side of things, doing a bit of work for Pearson as well. So I am coming predominantly from an educational standpoint with a little bit of commercial experience. Now, the best part of my job is I pretty much get to schmooze and do this all day. Probably the most frustrating part of my job is the majority of people have never heard of us because our growth has been so exponential over the last 2 years. So just to contextualize that for you, we've gone from 8 staff to 128 staff in those 2 years. Companies we work with have gone from 125 to 750, and that ranges from one-man bands to multinational global companies. So anything from PwC, Santander, the Bank of England, the Army, to a gentleman called Mike who works at West Anglia College who does what's called Creative Portal, and he's been fantastic for us. It's essentially a LinkedIn to creative. So for me, it's about recognising that we want to be able to give a really diverse range of opportunities to young people. And that brings us nicely back to National Apprenticeship Week. So for those of you in schools, how our opportunities work, they're normally given an 8-week cycle. So 6 weeks for students to apply. And for those of the teachers that have already done this, they will know the cycle. But for those of you who don't, 6 weeks to apply, teacher confirms it like a mini UCAS, and then 2 weeks. Something for the teachers out there, if you are looking at offering an individualised opportunity for your students, we can do what's called a closed opportunity. So either you can come to us with a wish list, or you can say, Ian, we're working with a local company, they're not keen to do face-to-face just yet, would you be able to do a virtual? So we take care of things in the safeguarding and GDPR side of things, which makes it very easy, but equally as impactful if we're going back to the Ofsted Education Inspection Framework and also your Gatsby benchmark. So that's what we can offer. In terms of actual experiences for National Apprenticeship Week, they're already going ahead now, so we're midway through the week and in full swing. But what you can look at, for those who don't know, I'm just going to share my screen now, is just to give you a good idea of one of our other services. So can you see my screen? Just a little thumbs up for those of you I can see. Beautiful. So this is the first side. So this is where speakers for schools come from. It's our inspiration side. So on here, if you in your school or college wanted to book in a speaker, you would go on here. So schools and colleges apply to host a talk. But on this, when you fill this out, you can't request a specific speaker. It will be an area. So sport and leisure, for example. So you've got specific areas that if you want to work on, you can do that. So what I mean by that, if I just go back to the speakers here, you can see on there that they will have 5 specific areas. So you would just pick one of those topics. If you're super lucky, you might be able to, depending on their geographical location and what their diary is like, you may be able to request a specific speaker, but normally it's out of those 6 categories. Does that make sense so far? Perfect. Lovely. Thank you very much. So second side of things, which I think for teachers will be particularly good, especially on the PSHE side of things, for either using in tutorials or signposting students to, is our virtual talks and broadcasts. So virtual talks and broadcasts, again, I want to really emphasize this, free for schools and colleges and independent training providers to use. We do have revenue streams, but we will never charge schools and colleges. So on here, we can look at upcoming broadcasts when it works. So on here, you can see that we've got straight away 3 very different people in terms of what we can offer. So if you wanted to register, you can either register as tutor or a student individually. So you can see there for International Women's Day, we've got something on there. National Careers Week, we've got quite a lot on here. Alternatively, if you wanted to have a look at what's gone, and again, it can be utilised in a tutorial session, we've got lots of stuff. So again, either individually or facilitated by the teacher. So everything is timestamped. So you've got, actually, we've got some pretty cool people on here. So you can see in February and January, we've been pretty busy, but again, top 3, so varied. And that's one thing that we really pride ourselves on, is the diversity of speakers that we have. These traditionally last for 40 to 80 minutes. So within there, again, 6 very, very different people, all very cool in their own right. So you can look through these. I think if I go down to March, there's Gareth Southgate in there somewhere, but these are really cool. Again, literally just clicking on them and finding that inspirational talk. So what we try and do, we try and align our work experience opportunities and our speakers in line of the program we're doing. So for example, National Apprenticeship Week, without looking at our Salesforce, I think we've got about 6,000 places available for young people to go on those work experience opportunities. Now they range from anything from a twilight workshop. Why have we done twilight workshops in term time? Because we recognise as schools and colleges you're under pressure and timetables will have that rigidity around them. So within that, it's about ensuring that we can provide something a little bit different. So give either students time to finish school, college, find a computer at the school or college, or get themselves home and have a look at it. Half term time tend to go from 10 till 3, 10 till 2. So we want to ensure that we're catering for the students' needs in terms of how we can be impactful. Now, with regards to students, there's no limit and they will receive a certificate. So everything in terms of education will be evidence to show that they've done them. So that is essentially the first side of things. We're doing National Careers Week coming up this time, essentially next month. So for those teachers out there, I think there's about 3,000 opportunities on there. Have a look at our Padlet. It's got the main opportunities on there, and International Women's Day as well. So please have a look through. Application deadlines will be coming up in the next couple of weeks. So please push this on. If you do need anything else, any further guidance or any onboarding, any staff training, anything I can do to help, I'm going to put my email after I've finished talking in the chat. So in terms of where we're looking at for both National Apprenticeship Week and National Careers Week and International Women's Day, we will have everything that will coincide and align with that to really support the students. Has anybody got any questions around National Apprenticeship Week and National Careers Week and International Women's Day? Perfect. I'm either doing an okay job or I've sent everyone to sleep. I'll probably go with somewhere in the middle. So that for me is a really important part of the service that we offer. With regards to that service we offer, it will go to, as I was saying, it will go to face-to-face work experience opportunities, because we recognise nothing beats face-to-face, but we also want to try and dovetail that and align that with the normal job application process in terms of apply, have the virtual interview, the virtual experience, and then move forward from there. The next campaign we're talking on, and Kit touched upon it at the start, is what we call Green Skills Week. And I'm just going to share, Green Skills Week essentially is now Green Skills Month. So that will be sustainability and everything around the environmental side of things, carbon zero, carbon neutral, to ensure that actually, regardless of whatever company you are doing your little bit for the environment. And it's the same for Upper which is focused on technology. What we really want to encourage is every single company to try and participate in this Green Skills Month, because the climate affects everybody and it impacts every business. And what it's easy to do is think, oh, let's look at energy companies to see what they're doing. Well, actually, every single company should be doing their bit, but should also, Charlotte, good example at Flagship. I'm sure it's a really, really good one for you, even as simple as, right, we use recycle bins. That may be little, but the impact it has compounds and is massive. So I'm just going to share this very quickly. Perfect. So essentially, this is what we did last year. Companies we work with, a little bit about the company, but what I'm all about impact. How are we impacting? How are we supporting young people? So this is all about Speakers Schools, and I can send this across to Kip, but this is essentially what we've looked to do. So this was April last year, this was summer, that was autumn, and that was winter. So programs we're looking to do, but let's just get to the impact because we haven't got too long. So in terms of the impact, we can see when we get there. Here we go. So you can see from Green Skills Week, we had 12 broadcasts, 70 virtual talks, 107 people speaking, and our student reach was just under 8,000 placements that we could offer to young people, which is fantastic. Our Predict, which is the next campaign we did throughout June, was even more successful. I think we worked with 90 companies off the top of my head, and we offered 9,800 placements to young people. That is only going to compound in growth to support those young people throughout. And I think for me, young people, it's really pertinent, especially with people like Greta Thunberg. It's really working on what we can do, and it's really appreciating to students that the little things make the biggest difference. Stat I always try and use, everybody's doing the right 80% right. Everybody is doing 80% right. It's the little things that make the biggest difference. And I think if we can illustrate, if we can demystify, if we can show that to young people and give them a really diverse awareness of what lots of different companies are doing, that can be really powerful in that young person's thoughts, as well as illuminating their perspective in terms of what different careers they wanted to work in. When I was at school, I was very much pigeonholed in thinking sport, 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 sport. But what we should do is say, if you've got key skills, those key skills should form, I suppose, a holistic umbrella and allow those students to work in every single industry. And if we can do that, we're in a good place. I mean, I've gone from sport to teaching to working with employability students to now working for a charity. And that, for me, I love the fact I'm part of a squiggly line, a very squiggly line. But that's what we want to be able to show young people, show them that it isn't linear. So it isn't just GCSEs, A-levels, degrees. There's lots of different ways, and it's particularly pertinent with apprenticeships that students can be successful. And what is successful is entirely up to them. Successful doesn't mean getting a degree. It might do to some people, but success could be just gaining 4 grade 3s, for example, at GCSE is successful. It's really looking at those students' needs and being impactful. And I think for me, this is what the National Apprenticeship Week, National Careers Week as national initiatives really help students, and also the campaigns we do in terms of our Green Skills Month and Predict really help open the eyes of students, whilst I think probably supporting you as tutors and staff members to think, actually, you know what, you've got this opportunity, you've got this opportunity, you've got this opportunity, and it's all good for their CV, it's all good for UCAS, it's all good for apprenticeship opportunities. And I'm sure Jane will hopefully agree with me, the more diverse the opportunities students can have and the more they can talk about, the more beneficial it's going to be for them when it comes to job interviews and when it comes to looking at apprenticeships, because I'm a firm believer in actually what's best for you as a student and what's best for students in terms of when we're looking when they leave school. Can we tell a story about every single student and why they are going where they're going? And if we can do that, we're doing a good job. If we just put them all to university, for me, that's fundamentally flawed and fundamentally wrong, because it needs to be what's right for each individual. Sorry, when I get quite passionate, I really get going. So essentially those are, and I'm just going to stop sharing my screen now, what we look to offer in terms of our campaigns, both nationally and internal campaigns we do to support young people across the UK. Our reach in terms of how we're looking is our reach is over 3 million young people and growing at the moment. In terms of East Anglia, we currently work with 450 schools, college and independent training providers on our experience programme. We have 50 new schools across the East Midlands and East Anglia that have signed up this academic year only. And out of the new and existing schools we've got 202 staff members that have signed up to be part of the experience programme. For me, as an ex-tutor and an ex-educational manager, this for me would be an absolute godsend, because looking for work experiences was always a nightmare, and my background was sport, so I looked at it wrongly so. Oh, if they're doing football coaching, that's their work experience, but that's not meaningful. That's really not meaningful. It needs to be individualised and meaningful. So what we can offer is we can offer unlimited opportunities to students. We're always growing and diversifying our offering. And what we really want to do is show to students and show to tutors, this is easy to use, it's impactful, you get to speak to people out of your comfort zone and out of your bubble. And what you get from there is, I suppose, that internal reinforcement that actually, just because you're not on a journey that you think is right, lots of different people have gone lots of different ways. There's a really good saying I like, no CEO is the same, and every CEO has a journey to tell. And if we can show students, actually, it's not about, yes, it's great to get good grades, but that's not the most important thing. The most important thing is becoming a better person and a better individual. And if you improve your personal and social confidence, you will improve your academic confidence with it. And academic confidence for me is not just how well you write an essay, because I cannot do that for the life of me, and I do it very badly. But it's how well you communicate with your staff, and it's understanding about work-life balance. Lots of stuff, and this is not me being disparaging to tutors, that tutors don't necessarily have time to delve into as deep as they would like to. I was certainly the same. So for me, it's really important that what we have to offer is really wide-ranging and beneficial to students, from talks to individual schools, to the virtual broadcast, to the virtual broadcast library, to experience, to what we have to offer in our Padlet. And also I've popped in there, it's the Next Gen opportunity, our National Teen Book Club. So that will be starting again in March. And essentially it's 5 sessions with a nationally renowned author. Go and have a look at it. You apply the same way you would do for a work experience opportunity. English teachers, librarians, individual students can apply. It's quite hidden in our website. So it's something that's really beneficial in terms of, if I look at it, functional skills development, GCSE retake development. So lots of different packages. We are not just a charity that offers work experience. Hopefully you'll see we're all about providing the best possible impact and the best possible support to you as teachers and to young people as we possibly can. I think I'm done with 2 minutes to spare, which I'm amazed with. Does anybody have any questions?
If you do have any questions, you feel free to ask them now. But we will have some time at the end after we've heard from Charlotte that you can then join in with the Q&A. So I will hand over to Charlotte now from Flagship. She's going to give a bit of an apprentice perspective for us. Thank you, Charlotte.
No problem. Yeah, thanks for inviting me first of all. It's been quite good to sort of listen to and learn from everybody, because yeah, I've done apprenticeships in the past, and this is actually my second apprenticeship I've done. So sort of a bit of a career change for me, really. So a bit of a background on myself really before I go to my slides. I am doing a level 4 Community Energy Specialist Apprenticeship at Flagship Group. If you haven't heard of Flagship Group before, we're a housing association based in the east of England. So we have just over 30,000 homes. So my role is an energy and renewables apprentice in the energy team. So I work with the team rolling out the installation of heat pumps, insulating homes, anything to do with energy really. So it's been quite varied so far, but I'll share my screen and I can sort of go through. Hopefully it'll work okay. Can you see my screen okay? Yep, good, that's great. Okay, so just a bit of background on myself. So I did mention before I've done an apprenticeship before. So I actually went through sixth form. My experience with sixth form really was that university was kind of the only option. So I went through the role. I actually applied to university to do a marketing course. I wasn't completely sure what I wanted to do because I've not really done it before. So I looked at other options after applying and found an apprenticeship instead. So I decided to go down that route rather than going for my offer at university. So I did that for 2 years and did a higher level apprenticeships to level 4 in that. So that was a few years ago now. I had a few different roles since then. I think since then, I hadn't ever really appreciated what sort of roles there were in sustainability and climate change. So in 2018, I think was the sort of starting point to my sort of interest in all this. After a holiday, we went down to the beach one morning and the beach was completely covered in sort of plastic waste. And I think that was the first introduction to me to the sort of issues that are really out there. And since then, I was just really sort of passionate about going into this sort of area and sort of climate change sustainability. So yeah, I mean, in my personal life, I made a lot of different changes, but I think even though I was doing marketing at the time, I think my next step was really to go into a career that really suited sort of everything else I was doing in my personal life. I just wanted to make a change really. So last year I was looking at opportunities. I initially considered going back to university, but sort of 24 now, I had financial restraints and I thought, what other options are there? So I found this apprenticeship through Flagship Group. And after, I didn't know much about Flagship Group or housing associations in general, really. So after looking at, I found out that energy in homes actually accounts for 14% of UK greenhouse gas emissions. So after hearing that, I mean, it's obviously a big part of reaching net zero is what we do in our homes, how we heat our homes, something that I maybe hadn't considered before, especially at school, and that was something I never really considered. So it sort of shows all the different career paths there are to that aren't sort of obvious. Yeah, I'm going to kind of go through on my next slide a couple of the, hopefully that will work okay. Yeah, so these are some of the things I've done so far. As I said, I've only been in the role for sort of 6 months now, but the first picture on here is we're doing a ground source heat pump installation near King's Lynn at the moment. So I got to go out and see the site there. One of my subjects for my apprenticeship was solar energy. So I got to go and see some solar panels being installed at a site near Ipswich. And then I also got to attend a COP26 fringe event in London, which was really good. We were learning from different housing associations, people in the build environment, which was really good. I got to network and I got to hear from lots of really good people. And apart from that, I mean, I've been able to help out with rolling out installation in many of our homes. I've been able to attend a APC survey, so I've seen what we look at to sort of measure the energy efficiency of homes, which has been really useful. There's lots of different career paths, I think, from this. So yeah, so we can work with giving advice to tenants on energy. Yeah, lots of different things really. These are some of the subjects covered in my apprenticeship role so far. So alongside obviously my day-to-day, I'm doing 1 day a week of my apprenticeship. So these are some things I've covered so far. So understanding energy supply and demand, methods of improving energy efficiencies, renewable technologies, national and local energy grids, project management, bid writing, bid reporting, delivering energy advice, and energy auditing. So my apprenticeship is Community Energy Specialist, so I didn't know too much about community energy before I started. It links well to what I'm doing at the moment because it's a lot of project-based work, so we're rolling out air source heat pumps, installing solar PV in local communities in the east of England. So yeah, there's been, it ties in very closely with my apprenticeship, and I'm also being encouraged to go out into my local area and find local communities as well who are running different projects. So I've noticed there's not very many in the east of England, but it'd be really positive to see some more, especially with energy prices sort of skyrocketing at the moment. So I think we will see some more in the future. So this slide is about Morgan. He wasn't able to attend today. He's actually on holiday at the moment, but he's also doing an apprenticeship, which is a little bit different to mine, which is a chartered management degree apprentice, which isn't necessarily linked to sustainability, but he was able to join the energy team a couple of years ago as part of a role which you sort of rotate through different departments. So he's actually nearly finished his apprenticeship now, and he's going to be staying in our team. So his was more varied, so to do with housing, legal, regeneration and sustainability. So he could kind of finish his apprenticeship and sit anywhere, but he's been really enjoying the work we're doing in our team. So that's been really good to see. And yeah, just in summary, really. So yeah, I think young people are more aware than ever than of the changes, the challenges we face. And it was really interesting to hear earlier from Ian actually just about these having speakers in schools. I think when I was in school, especially at sixth form, with it being such a pressure to go to university, I think hearing from people and hearing about apprenticeships that could be available, or just having the work experience opportunity at the time, would have been really useful, rather than having that pressure to just find a subject and just jump into it and go to university. But yeah, I think having those options available would be really useful. Yeah, I think that's sort of everything I wanted to cover really with this. Hopefully that's sort of given you an idea of yeah, what my role sort of covers. I don't know if you'd ever even considered having this sort of role in the housing association, but there's a lot of work for us at the moment. It's a massive sort of task to get to net zero, with a lot of our homes being well, a lot of our homes at the moment are below an EPCC. So yes, it's a big job at the moment, and our team is expanding quite quickly. So it's been a good sort of time to start it. But yeah, my last slide is just really some information about, so there's a link there to the Flagship group apprenticeship options at the moment. So the apprenticeship that Morgan does is one they run yearly, so it's actually a degree apprenticeship. So he has got a degree at the end of this 4-year course, so they do offer those quite a lot. Impact Group or Academy is the training provider I'm with, so if you're interested in them, I can certainly find some more information out about it, and that is my email address as well. So hopefully that's given you some good information.
Lovely, thank you so very much, Charlotte. It's really, really great stuff, and I hope you're enjoying it. It looks like a fantastic apprenticeship that you're doing, and definitely very crucial to our future, definitely. So I'm just going to share. So if I could just get you to, while you're thinking of your questions, everyone, if I could just get you to complete our evaluation from today, it would be really good to hear your feedback. You just use the QR code there. And then if you do have any questions, I've popped all of our presenters' names up on there. If you want to direct it to them personally, and then we can start getting some answers for you. So just while we're on here as well, I just wanted to point out a couple of trips that we've got coming up. So of course, we've got 2 more drop-in sessions available happening tomorrow lunchtime and Friday lunchtime, that students can come along and talk to us and get some one-to-one advice on apprenticeships. We also have 2 trips taking place during our work experience week. So we have our first one, which is happening at BT's Astrals Park, where students can come along. We have 15 places, everything is paid for, including transport and lunch. They'll get to meet some of the apprentices there and the apprenticeships that they do at BT, and also go and look at their future environment setup that they've got up over there. So they've got loads of exciting technology for the future, and it's quite cool to go and look at. We've also got our trip over at Thetford, which we've got a number of employers. I think we've got Flagship coming along to that. I believe Kieran's put himself forward. So we'll have a number of different local apprenticeship providers, and again we have a limited number of spaces, but everything will be paid for, including transport to the venue, transport back, and food. And students can come and meet a whole range of different apprenticeship providers and talk to them, and they'll also be giving a slight presentation on what they provide. So definitely keep pushing them. All tickets are done through Eventbrite, and they can just sign up through the QR code. And then also on here, I've got just some more helpful information for you as well, and just a reminder again there with the evaluation form on that last slide. So if you want to take down any of the information from there, we've also got our neaco Take Your Place apprenticeship portal on there, which Kit created, which is just fantastic. It's a really great way for locating apprenticeships. So I'm going to start wrapping things up. If you have filled in that questionnaire, thank you so much. Your evaluation is really, really important. And thank you for submitting your questions. I think everybody's put their details on there. So if you do want to get in contact with them and do maybe a chat one-to-one, please do. And please feel free to depart whenever you need to.